pues vamos a arrancar.
All right, we're going to kick off. Najat, you have the floor. Thank you very much for having invited me to attend these days for reflection and the role of art and the role of creators. I think that in today's world it is more relevant than ever to make this reflection. And I feel very much in line with the proposal of this reflection on art, on the creator. But before starting, I would like to remind two people here. I would like to commemorate two persons, because all human lives are sacred. I would like to commemorate and to pay tribute to Younes Bilal, who was a man, a 37-year-old man living in a town of Murcia. And not long ago, he went to a bar to have a drink. And a former military person, a Spaniard, and I'm talking about this because, you know, when crimes are committed by foreigners, it always has a connotation, and we tend to blame the nation of the author of the crime. But in this case, he was a Spaniard. So Mr. Bilal went to have a drink to this bar, and the other person started insulting the waitresses in the bar because they were talking to Mr. Bilal and to other people of Arabic origin. And they were insulted, and he said, "What are you doing talking to these Arabs?" So Bilal stood up and faced that man, and he said, "What do you have against these Arabs?" And he was murdered because that other person decided to kill Bilal. And this is a racist crime, obviously. So I would like to commemorate the life of that innocent person whose life was taken away for the mere fact of standing up. On the other hand, I would like to commemorate a 19-year-old woman, Wafa Sabah. She is from Valencia, from Moroccan origin. She disappeared in 2019, and her body was found not long ago in the house of his killer. This woman will not be considered a victim of gender crime because, according to the legislation, there must be a family relationship for this to be considered a gender crime. However, I do believe that this is a gender crime. And this is another victim of gender violence, and this is one of the issues that should really revolt us all. This woman lost her life for the mere fact of being born with the wrong sex. And I would like to commemorate Wafa. And well, I'm just bringing these two examples up because I think that these two examples illustrate the kind of violence that we're suffering nowadays. It is our current violence. We have shaped this violence through a series of discourses. These discourses are promoted from different lines of power. These discourses show a stereotypical image of the other, a dehumanization of the other. And then we think about suppressing the life of the other and just obliterating the other through these discourses. I think that through this representation, the representation that is also provided by mass media, we're all witnessing these processes that leads to the erosion of the elements that make us perceive the other, men and women, as people who are equal to us, So what can we do in front of all of this? What can we do, you know, for us artists, us who are living in the sphere of artistic creation? Because we cannot turn a blind eye to reality. Our responsibility as creators, I think that we are in a privileged position to generate an alternative discourse. We cannot forget this reality. We must not turn a blind eye to this reality. And I was showing you these two examples because to me, these are two expressions of injustice and discrimination. And I have been witnessing this for such a long time. And I have seen this personally. As a writer, I have decided not to turn a blind eye to this reality because I think that this is my reality too. But in order to reach this point and in order to feel in line with the proposal of these days, I have undertaken a long reflection process. I mean, this was not a starting point. When I was a child, I wanted to be a writer. I used to say, I just want to be a normal writer, just tell stories and nothing else. Because I grew up in a society by the end of the 80s and 90s in which we were given the message that it was not necessary anymore to be politically engaged from an artistic point of view. I mean, we were in post-modernity, and it seemed that post-modernity had to be relativistic and cynical and indifferent to what was happening in the world. So writers we were told that writers were meant to write stories and just say whatever we wanted to say and not have any kind of creation that may be related to political engagements, or, well, we didn't even need to get close to any ideology at all because, well, there were many ideologies from the 20th century which had led to strong distress. So actually our role was mainly a role of being reluctant about everything, not relying on anything, not believing in anything, and without taking notice on it, we were having an absurd role as writers and creators. Because if I am here just as a writer to entertain people and not to rely on anything and have a cynical attitude about everything, well, then literature, you know, is pointless. Literature is meant for nothing. I mean, if literature and art are not meant to transform reality or to attempt to shake our awareness, well, then what's the role of literature? We can just keep watching Netflix forever. It will be more entertaining, won't it? But the real thing is that I believe that there will be writers and I believe there will be creators who can afford the privilege of not being engaged. Okay, but this is not my case. And I realized about this because, you know, when I wanted to be a non-engaged writer, what I was doing actually was going against my own reality and situation. The reality that I was facing and that I had to live were pushing me to write in a way that my writing would reflect the suffering of people who are never considered as the main characters of a novel. They're never represented. So I was meant to make that invisible sector of the population in the world, I was meant to make them become visible. Because today there are so many people who are represented and who have the power for that representation to lead to a dissemination that will change the collective imagery. Well, these represented people are only one part of the population with a certain status, with a certain origin, with a certain sex. Even though we have moved forward in terms of feminism, even though we have covered a certain path in terms of awareness against social injustice, in spite of all this path that we have covered, we must realize that the main characters of what we write are medium-class men, and they come from the Western world. This is the majority. It's just as if human beings were represented by that. And then women, we have been, for centuries, we have been trying to dig in that wall against men and women. But women, we are meant to write in order to create a different imagery, to enlarge the borders of the imagery that was so narrowly imposed to us. And women are human beings, and they're equal to any other human being. And what's universal is not a man, and what a woman writes is as universal as what a man may write. And for a person who grew up in a small town in Morocco, with a different language that nobody knows about, with traditions that nobody knows about, well, as that person, I choose through my novels to represent my reality, because this is my reality, and my reality has never been represented. But the matter for me is not to make justice about this reality. It's to make justice about all the other realities. I'm talking here about a small town in Morocco where women are doomed to be doing the domestic chores every day. And they're facing difficulties, and they're facing suffering, actually. And they have to face all that suffering. But there is as much life in that context as there is in any of the coolest cities in the world. So I think that this is part of our role as writers. We have to place a look upon those places which are invisible. We have to make this decent. We have to give dignity to those human lives that have been eroded for so long. And we must transform, we must demolish that wall, we must reverse that process of dehumanization. Because if you're taking a gun and placing a bullet on a man because he's of Arab origin, well, you're just consolidating that wall. That means that that Arab person is not human. So, and the same goes for crime against women. When a man is capable of putting an end to the life of their children just to inflict pain on the mother, then we are facing a process in which human beings are dehumanized, and women are dehumanized. And well, I don't know if I have been talking too much, and I don't know how long I've been talking. I know I tend to talk too much.
Well, perhaps we should refer to Camus a little bit now. When I was thinking about these gatherings, I often have in mind this question of the philosophical question, the only one that, whether it's worth continue living or not, whether we should commit suicide and that's it, or not. And reflecting about this and thinking about feminism and all the thinking around feminism, I don't know if Camus would have had some views about this and how feminism could have been incorporated into his reflections. But when we thinking about this philosophical question, and when I place it in context with the situation of women, perhaps today's the main philosophical question is not whether we should commit suicide or not anymore. Perhaps now the question is, should we have children or not? because that's in fact thinking or questioning the potential suicide of humankind in general, not only of an individual. Because I think that there is a clear figure that embodies the suffering of the society is the figure of a woman alone with a child. And such a person will face absurd situations, unfair situations, suffering, and even an anguish that is an existential anguish. As a mother, I have asked myself, why have I had children? Why am I contributing to the continuity of this absurd situation? What will my children do in the future? If we take into account the current status of the society, current situation of the world, of the environment, and how societies are organized in the world. And in my opinion, that is the philosophical question to be asked by mothers. I'm sorry I'm correcting Camus, but my question would be that. Is it worthwhile having children? For me, that's the main question. My answer is yes, because having children is trusting, perhaps in a naive way, but perhaps a blind trust in a little door open to hope. Because hope, in my opinion, is essential to continue creating. If we create, that is because we believe that what we are doing will be seen by someone and that someone will be touched by what we do. And so creating and having children are two ways of going for hope and believing in the possibilities of the future. Because, well, I am convinced that luckily we are not doomed to anything. We don't have a destiny, and therefore the future will depend on what we do and on what we transform. So in this sense, step by step, we have, each of us, a possibility of planting the seed of change for a more fair or a fairer world in the future.
Bueno, pues gracias, Najat. Qué inspiración, ¿no?
Thank you, Najat. What an inspiration to start this roundtable with you. Here we have three wonderful girls and a nice guy. And I think we are here, the three of us, united by engagement, by commitment. And this is has become also our way of life. The art we do is a tool that, in my opinion, is part of our life commitment. I love it. We're coming from different worlds, but there are coincidences here. There is coincidence here, and that's what we're looking, searching for in life, to match things, to make things meet. And you said something beautiful. From my personal experience, well, since dance is in me, and that was well, that's been so since I was little. I was born in Seville, and this is present. This has been present in my life forever. If you do flamenco, that's it. You know, I used to dance because it made me happy, because I felt I did it well, because it made me feel satisfaction. And as life goes by, and you know, as I was growing and I got to know myself better and I got to know my dance better, which is a very essential part of me, I realized that there was a moment when I didn't do it for me anymore. I was doing it for something else. When I started, the audience was, for me, like the people that would approve what I was doing. So what they felt towards me. And this is something I expected to receive to be able to continue. But with time, with maturity, life, and experience, you realize that the art you do is for not for you, but to create a relationship with the others, with your audience, because the work is complete when you have the interpretation of each of the people in the audience. And that's when you understand that dance is a dialogue. It is a continuous dialogue from the inner side, from the creative moment with the musicians and with my María Hardy, which is who's the person who accompanies me to create the topics I want to talk about. Also when the people that participate in the creation of a different world on the stage, and you have the people in the lights control, the people working on the dressing, and the musicians. It's always a dialogue, a continuous exchange. But all these will have sense only if the audience, the people who come to share with you this ceremony, will receive all these efforts and carry out their own vital and emotional interpretation of your work. And that's wonderful, because there are therefore so many pieces of works as people in the audience, and each of them will interpret your work in their own personal way. And for me, this is absolutely great. During my whole life, I've always felt responsible. I have had a responsibility, and I think art has an ethical responsibility too. And this is because I've always had to convince Spanish citizens who know about flamenco and what they feel, what it is. Well, I must admit I feel very sad when people don't respect that flamenco is art by itself, and they just think it's like, ole, that's it. And I really feel sad when I see people who are resisting, and there's a lot of this resistance. For me, this has become my struggle, because there are these people that resist to understand that flamenco is a great art. There are a lot of people involved, a lot of effort, a lot of values, a lot of hard work. It's not just a dancer coming and dancing with duende, as we say, and just inspired by God. No, there's a lot of work behind that, a lot of rational and emotional work on it to be able to reach something that is simple, but at the same time will have a great impression, will generate a great impact. And this is the result of a lot of hard work. And that work is marvelous. And this is why I demand that choreographic work should be acknowledged as one of the marvelous things humankind can do. And it's also so important in terms of coexistence, of communicating, conveying values, so that when the audience looks at an artistic work, that people should be able to recognize themselves there. So this is why at the beginning I was saying that the audience and the artists, we are the same thing in a piece of work. Of course, the artist has the responsibility of doing the work, but the audience is essential. Demanding or claiming the human dialogue is also claiming art as tools of understanding, of commitment. And therefore, well, at the beginning I started dancing at school, and then later on this became my job, and now I'm working on choreography. But throughout my life, and I want to share this experience, because what in the end makes me find meaning in everything. I've had a company for over 33 years. I'm 57 now. I started dancing when I was 5, and I believe now that all this has sense, because I must share all this, and all this must be useful. And this is why I'm coming to this wonderful phrase that we heard earlier that says, art must help live. And that is something that dance does. Dance should be in the education of children. Dancing is possible because the true, real tool that helps us develop our emotions is our body. In fact, every human being is a dancer. We all have a body. And when we see children, when they listen to some kind of music or rhythm, they will start moving. And that's dancing. And Noah, when she was singing, she danced. Look, seeing you sing and accompany your song with those movements, you know, if I wasn't listening to your song, I'd say you're a great dancer. And during the dinner, Najat is also a dancer, we discovered. She said, you know that when I'm writing, it's my whole body that moves, and if something doesn't work out, I start moving again, and in a different way. So she's a true dancer too. We are all dancers, and we need to practice this more. We need to come out of that resistance towards the body. So many religions have imposed on us. I think the world would be better if we danced more. This is why one of the actions I do, I work in a choreographic center in Fuenlabrada, in the periphery of Madrid. It's a village with a lot of, well, it's working class who live there, with a lot of immigrants. And we've been able to bring our project to this center, to this village. And our mission, it's by Larry Harty and myself. He's from Morocco, and our idea is to link the south with another part of the south, but that is placed more to the north, and to try and share this idea that through dancing we can improve coexistence. We want to dignify dancing. I don't know, I'm saying this to you, but I sometimes feel a bit out of this, a bit excluded, because dance is always like the poor little sister of the arts. Perhaps because there are more women there. In a ballet class, there will be 20 girls and just one boy, isolated there. Or if you go to a ballet company, there you see more female dancers than male dancers, and I've always felt that there's discrimination towards dancing because it's a more female art, and sometimes it doesn't help you claim it as an art, and also because it's the body we're always hiding. I remember that my mother used to say that the Cardinal Segura in Seville during the dictatorship in Spain one day decided that dancing would be forbidden. Can you imagine that in Seville? A ban on dancing. And he prohibited this because it was said to be obscene. But in Seville, we dance for everything. It's not that we dance all day, but that we find many occasions to dance. And Cardinal Segura, well, his ban was ignored by everyone. My mother used to say, you know, that was 2 days, and then afterwards, after a few days, we just all wore our flamenco dresses, our flowers, and we started off dancing. So there's a lot of censorship there. And in our choreographic center, we are carrying out an action to have an inclusive social action to help immigrants to be integrated, become integrated, because I think we're failing there. We're not doing things right. We're doing things that seem to be inclusive or are inclusive in theory and should help, but in the results and the outcome we see that's not the case. We're doing dancing programs to work on issues such as disability and many others, but it's the actual practice of dancing. It's something that gets people together, brings people together. It helps you share a code and the space. And I think these actions Well, I don't think personally I will be dancing for a long time now, but I am going to spend my time helping or making sure or trying to make sure dancing will be more present in our lives. I think that people who've devoted their lives to dancing are sources of human knowledge. Dancing is not only a physical practice. In each dance there is human message, a lot of work behind that, and values that we can convey. I don't know if I've taken too long, but just to conclude, because I've already said more or less everything I wanted to bring to this roundtable with you, and I'd like to end with that phrase that I love, that truly, thank you, Camus, art helps live and dance helps to live. So let's integrate it within us, because dancing is everybody. It's probably the most human art, the one that is closer to emotions and the heart.
Shalom, everybody. I can already see it was a big mistake to agree to be the third speaker. I feel so honored to be here with you both. I was so taken by everything you said, all tears, really. I have so much, I don't even know, my mind is going so fast. Thinking how to react to everything that you've said. A lot of the things you say are also some things I wanted to say, naturally, because we are one organism. But Najat, now I'm going to run and read everything you've ever written. I'm sure it's fascinating.
Thank you.
And wow, what a persona you are. It's so beautiful to hear you and to see you. Amazing. I was thinking one interesting thing about art and literature and dance, that sometimes people tend to think that we choose to be artists, and that is not true. The art chooses us. It's like a D-book, really. You know, I'm a rationalist, I'm not religious in any way, but I really believe that there is a spirit, like a ghost, that plants itself in an artist or a writer, and that's it, you're doomed for life. It's like the Via Dolorosa. You carry that cross to the end of your days. And the idea is to make sure that it's a substantial journey. Needless to say that both of you have made your journeys incredibly substantial and meaningful for yourselves and for everyone around you. And what a blessing that is. Reading Camus' statements about life, about the absurdity of it all, and about our rebellion against the absurd, I found a deep resonance in that. And Gil and I were having a conversation about the meaning of dialogue. And, you know, the dialogue can also be senseless if you believe that everything is nothing. And, yeah, I have 3 children too, and I've asked myself the same question, where it's all going. But my answer is very close to yours, and through maybe a break from what Camus is saying, or an addition to what he's saying, is that within this seemingly senseless dialogue, which is only a rebellion, there is also a quest. And our quest is to find resonance, to find beauty. Beauty will save the world. Didn't Dostoevsky say that? I love that quote. I think that it will. And what is beauty, really? We say beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. Here I will say something about the Hebrew language. In Hebrew, the word beauty is yafeh. And yafeh has a root. The root of this word would be the word yif'ah. Yif'ah means emergence. Yes, emergence or a revelation, something that is revealed all of a sudden. So you can see a black earth and a small flower which has dared to grow in this small earth. That is a revelation, and it is so beautiful. Or you can imagine the flamenco dancers daring to dance even though the priest has said no. They are revealing their passion and their love for what they do. They are courageous, and in that there is immense beauty. I have to say about flamenco that flamenco for me is one of the most amazing forms of art. Really, I know that there is a prejudice against it some places. I don't understand the prejudice. Me coming from the outside, I don't have that whole Spanish thing about north and south, and I don't understand that. I just observe from the outside. And flamenco is both mysterious, amazing. I think it's amazingly intellectual also. It's so difficult for us coming from the outside to understand what you're doing. You know, people say it's gypsies, yeah, they're just playing around. What? Whoever understands anything about music knows that that thing they're doing, that 12-bar cycle going, the amazing telepathy that there is between the dancer, the guitarists, the palmas, the whole, wow, it's a wow. It's beautiful. It makes life meaningful, this amazing beauty. And I agree with you about dancing being sometimes underrated, even though I find it to be incredible. Not only that, but I don't think you can make music, for example, without dancing. Making music, composing music, creating is all a dance. The physical thing in playing a guitar or in singing, it's about breathing and about movement. It's about the circulation of air through the body. And we seek beauty, the revelation of some little mystery. That's what we're actually looking for. We're trying to reveal something within the human condition, within the bleakness and the blackness and the very easy to fall into depression and pessimism. I think that's the easy way out, if you ask me. You know, many artists, unfortunately, around my colleagues, they fall into depression with cynicism together, and that makes them oblivious. You know, when we come out and we speak for peace, we work for peace, then people say, it's a waste of time. You know, nothing will come of it anyway, I say. And then I remember the quote by Shimon Peres. He said, optimists and pessimists, they all die the same, but they live differently. And I prefer to live as an optimist. I have no reason to live as a pessimist. What comes of it? So if I live as an optimist and I create a reality around me that generates good and positive energy, then maybe somewhere the molecules of the universe will move, like Najat said, we will create a reality, the butterfly wings that we will flap, our beautiful flamenco wings, the words we say, our movements, our voice. They'll start a little movement, and the movement will grow, and it will grow, and it will grow, and it will reach the Arctic, it will reach the hearts of people, and it will change something in the way they choose to behave in critical moments of their life. And I think that's all we can really hope for as artists. We move something in the soul, and in critical moments of a woman or a man's life, they may remember, they may recall, they have the memory of this beauty, of the courage, of the excitement and the energy generated through art. They'll say, maybe something else is possible. Maybe I can think in a slightly different way. Maybe I don't really have to be afraid. Look at that girl. She was standing on stage. How was she not afraid to sing in front of people? Maybe she'll... I'm thinking about my father. My father comes to my concerts. He's on the verge of a heart attack all the time. I can see him sitting like this. What will my daughter do? Will she fall? Will she make a mistake? Will she say something wrong? Will her voice, will it fall? He's in a panic. But, you know, at the end, my grandmother, who died just recently at the age of 97, she would say, Ya binti, you were born a bird, fly. And I love this word. You were born a bird, fly. Spread your wings, fly. Don't be afraid. It's okay. This is an incredible idea to grow up with. I feel so fortunate. You know, an old Yemenite woman, very small, suffered a lot in her life. But she had something inside which was so strong. And I'm happy to say that I probably inherited it. and I pass it on to my children who will make the world a better place, hopefully. So it's this moment that you see, you remember, art gives you a point of reference of what is possible. And I think that that is our great privilege when you see the flamenco dancer, what she does with her body, or he. Wow, I say, that's amazing. Everything is possible. You go home and say, everything is possible. In my small world, I can make a little change. I can move the molecules of reality. And this is my rebellion against the absurdity of life and the abyss of what it's all leading to. No, I rebel. Camus said we should make art dangerously. I think so. Make it dangerously. Because just like Najat said, and I've been thinking about that a lot for years, about the distinction between art and entertainment. They're two different words, and there's a reason for that, yeah? Art can be entertaining sometimes, but it's not the raison d'être of art. Art is there to go like this. No, not to go like this. Yeah? We're there to shake, yeah, you know, to move something inside the person. Sometimes it's nice. Sometimes it's not. You know, we're not there to be the baby doll of anyone. And I don't think that's our role. And everyone has a role. Entertainment also has a role. It's important that it exists, you know, to make weddings happy and to just, you know, nice. But that's not what we're here for. And it's good that it's so. So to make art dangerously. And sometimes you pay a price for the decisions you make. Yes. Many prices. But I have something to say about that. First, there is no important decision you make in your life that doesn't come with a price. Think about it. Anything. We decided to have children, we paid a price. Najat sat next to me and said, "You cut your hair."
I'm so sorry about
no,
that.
don't worry. I'm
So
happy
sorry.
to talk about it. Because I've been asked that. I used to have, when in my early 20s, very long hair. I never cut it. It left. It just said, bye-bye. Every child I had, my hair left with the blood, with the pain, when the hair. Is that okay? For me, it's okay. I got 3 beautiful children. And I'm 52 years old, and I'm very proud of the journey that I have made. I'm proud of it, and it's okay not to have hair. The important things, some of it is still here. The important things are here, in the mind and the heart and the wisdom that only age can bring you, and how beautiful that is. Another injustice of society is our approach to women, not only society and religion, I have to say, religion, monotheistic religion, who has put sensuality in, no, don't move your body, don't talk about sex, no. Put women in a cage, no, woman is bad. Think about tribal societies, dancing, the shamans, the wise woman, the tribe. Sexuality was part of everything. The body, art, all of those synergies, I think we're in an amazing place and something went wrong. We have to make it right. And that we can by opening, talking, making sure all the information is out there all the time, not being afraid to say, a woman loses her hair. Does that mean I have to put implants in my hair now to make it long? I remember someone once told me, Noah, we won't be able to sell any records if you don't put the plants in your hair to make them long, because the people remember you with long hair. I don't want to tell you what I said to them.
So sorry.
No, you gave me an opportunity to talk about an important subject. Please don't apologize. It's good. It's good. We don't talk about it. We're so afraid all of a sudden that someone won't love us for who we are. So we change ourselves constantly. We put Botox in our face. Misery not to be able to be who you are and to be courageous about it and say, love me for who I am because I'm worth it. If you want me to change in order for you to love me, you're not going to get it. Then you can go. The door is there. And that's something we have to get used to saying. And us, I think women, as we grow older, You know, I'm looking at you with your white hair. I'm going to do that very soon. Just going to let my hair go white. It's so beautiful. Who said that we have to keep changing all the time? No, age makes us magnificent. The age of wisdom and open. So this all connects to making art dangerously and rebelling against the abyss. Being courageous enough to be who you are and express that. And another sentence about the price. The price of speaking is high, but the price of silence is much higher. And who's going to pay that price? Maybe not us, because when you're silent, like my friends who sit in the cafe and they're cynical and they don't want to do anything. You know, I tried to make a big concert for peace a couple of years ago with the Israelis and Palestinians. I worked so hard on it. It didn't happen. It's a long story I won't tell you now. But I used to hear a lot from the Palestinians and the Israelis and the people with the money, you know, everyone, the politicians. Yes, but if we do that, they're going to say that. Yes, but they're not going to like it. Yes, but I will be criticized. And I always say, yes, and what do you suggest then? And what is your plan? And what is your dream? Not but, and. So the yes should come with an and, which means where are we going from here? Where do we take it from here? What will you do? Because no one's going to do the work for you. I mean, there are people, they're going to do work. Oh, it's dangerous work. Those ones who will do the work while you're sitting around being lazy or quiet are going to take your life to a place that will be terrible. And you have to be aware of that. So come on, do it. Don't be afraid. Don't be lazy. Rebel against the abyss and make it beautiful. Because beauty is amazing. It is definitely something worth living for. It's not a superficial thing. Beauty is a very, very deep concept. And I think that a life dedicated to its creation is a life well lived. I'm also speaking a lot like you. I never know when to stop. I'm not good at these panels. But I'll pass the microphone to Gil to say some things, and then maybe we will do a little song and end our part.
Mm-hmm. Hi, everybody. What a magnificent... I'm so humbled just listening to these great women around me, and each and every one of you. I don't need this. I know what I'm saying. We have, talking about Camus, we have actually many absurds and paradoxes in our life. One of them, a very essential paradox, is that we, of course, the absurd is that we search for meaning in a meaningless universe. But another absurd is, how do we do it? We do it with words, symbols, and concepts. We are slaves and prisoners of concepts. And these concepts and categories, what are they for? They are there for to illuminate, to make things clear for us. But then in reality, they're also like clouds that obscure the sun, because we have so many ideas in our heads, so many words that are not well defined. They cannot be. They're just tips of icebergs or tips of huge clouds, and they mix with each other, and with all the words and the concepts, in the end, we don't see the sun at all. That's a paradox. Our own tools of thinking are blocking our understanding in a way. Now, I'll give you some interesting examples and the way I, as a person, try to sort of rebel against this and how I do it. Let's talk about responsibility, because Najat was talking about responsibility and the other, and accepting the other. But on the other hand, don't fall into the postmodernistic trap where everything is the same, where all ideals are have equal, right? When we can embrace our cannibal neighbors because they are a tribe and they want to eat their fellows, but it's a story and we have to respect it and we have to let them continue. You know, I mean, we can take everything ad absurdum, right? So, what is responsibility? I try to listen to words and to the roots of them. Instead of thinking with them, I try to meditate about them. What is responsibility? It means that if I'm responsible, it means I respond to things. Okay, so who's not responsible? You have to be dead. A dead body is not responding to anything. So actually, it's like saying being alive. If you're alive, you are responsible to this or that extent. You're responsive. Hebrew, and this is where I'm coming from, has a beautiful term that we don't have the word responsible the way in the West we use it in the English language. Oh, you're not responsible, you're responsible humanity. We say achrayut. Achrayut comes from acher. Acher is the other. Achrayut is the ability to include the other in yourself. That is the literal meaning. Most people, even in Hebrew, don't listen to what they're saying. Most people in general don't listen to what they're saying. So they use achrayut the way we use responsibility. But responsibility is a different thing. And you know, when I first thought about it, this was, you know what a bar mitzvah is? A bar mitzvah is a Jewish sacrament, or what is it? Ceremony of taking a 13-year-old boy and saying, now you're a man, now you should be responsible. Before the law, before whatever. It's the age of maturity, according to Judaism originally, is 13. And I spoke at the ceremony of Noah's son. Of course, I can be his grandfather, literally, but I had to choose some words to say, and I wanted to tell him that this is the time for him to become responsible. So I said, you have to come to the age of achrayut. And then I thought about it, and I said, wow, this means that you start to include the other in your soul, in your considerations. And that's a very different thing, because when the mother says to her child, you should be very responsible, I'm leaving you with a baby for 2 hours because I go shopping, she doesn't mean that, because a robot can be responsible. It can be programmed to listen to the cry of the baby and go around and vacuum it. But like a Roomba robot. But the boy who can be responsible, with the boy that can feel the baby, and he's responding because he is altruistic. So the real term is altruism. The same alter, the same other. We talk about responsibility. No. We need altruism. We need to include the other. So that's the first thing I want to tell you. The second thing is that when you think about the other, you have to, I am very careful from some very steep traps. It's like walking on a thin razor on a mountain top. And what are the traps? The traps have to do with what triggers are being altruistic, right? Because we have this capacity, and sometimes we can see a poor guy in the street and we suddenly feel the other and we want to, help or do something. But that's dangerous, because we are motivated then by compassion. We're not talking about pure altruism. We're talking about using compassion as a trigger, and guilt. Both values, very important ones, especially in Christianity, I think, being highlighted. But how many poor, oppressed people, oppressed communities, how many of them in history suddenly become oppressors? How many tribes kill each other? First you have the victims on side A, and then they come back and they kill everyone on side B. And that shift of being oppressed and oppressor should teach us something. We should be aware of not rushing to help the poor just because on the surface it seems that the poor is essentially the righteous. The poor deserve sympathy and deserve help, but not necessarily the righteous ones. So that's one trap. And then also we should not do it just because we feel better being guilty of being privileged. We are all privileged in here, at this moment at least, of sitting in this nice room. Everybody has his baggage from where it's coming from. So I'm saying, so in other words, we're going to Camus, we go to the absurd of living, and we go to solutions, and we're saying, so what is the essential question? I think the essential question is we need an alternative to a moral code, a moral theory. I mean, you know, ethics. What would it be based on? And I have a personal, humble suggestion, because most moral theories come from religion. And that is also, for me, a dangerous thing, because it tells to men in the monotheistic religion, you were thrown out of Eden because you pretended to know good from bad, because you ate from the forbidden tree of knowing good from bad. But you can't tell good from bad, therefore you have to follow me, whoever the leader is, whoever the religious leader, the cardinal, the pope, the Jewish rabbi, or the big concilium of them, or whoever. We know, we speak with God, we know what's good and bad, and humanity should follow us. So when you don't know how to tell good from bad, there's a book here, and this is your way, so stop thinking and using your faculties, because you will not come to a conclusion. You'll come to the futile search for meaning. So just follow the books. And I'm saying there's a crack in the door, and I suggest the alternative. The alternative, and that's a big rebellion, and it says it's simpler than that. Every moment in your life is a fork. You have to make a decision. You can do this or not do this. You can turn right or left in the street. Every second is a fork in the road. And there's one way of moving along this tree of forks, decision tree. The one safer way. To the best of your feeling and knowledge, you have to choose the more reversible choice. If you drop the glass here, it's more reversible than drop it on the floor. If it breaks in two, you can use some crazy glue and put it maybe together. If it breaks to 1,000 little shreds, it's very hard to mend. It's more irreversible. If you kill a man, that's the ultimate irreversibility of life. That's about violence. So every little act, you should be aware. Is this the reversible path or the less reversible path? So I don't know what is good and bad. But I know that reversible is always better than irreversible. And that is a very tiny philosophy. But if you think daily, you can find a question, you can find meaning in that. In this world without meaning, so regardless of the big meaninglessness, we can all look at the absurd and say, yes, but we can choose the more reversible path. And for me, that is good. That's good enough. And we don't look for bigger good than that. Because that is not good.
Thank you.
So we said we would end with a little song here. I've chosen something that will surprise Gil, but it's the right thing that I have right now. Gil and I have spent a lot of time in our career working for peace, working to inspire dialogue and understanding and to build bridges. One of the fascinating women that we have met is a Palestinian-Israeli singer and songwriter by the name of Mira Awad. I met her in 2000, the year 2000. She's a multi-talented Renaissance woman, an actress and a designer. She's a singer and a songwriter, instrumental philosopher. She's really quite an extraordinary woman. We toured together, we performed together, we became good friends. And in the year 2009, I was approached by the Eurovision Song Contest to represent Israel. Now, needless to say, because of everything we talked about, I've never seen myself as an entertainer, rather as an artist. Eurovision is not my cup of tea. It's nice. It's very funny. It's very funny. Yeah, that's right. It became a rebellion for gay rights and for LGBT, definitely. But not a musical place that I would normally connect to. But I saw it as an incredible opportunity, a media platform to convey a message. And I decided to take the Camus route and to make my art dangerously. So I wrote a song. I insisted to write my own song and not to have, there are the songwriters that write all the songs. They have a system exactly. No. I wrote a song and I said, this is my song that I want to convey. This is the message I want to convey. I asked Mira to join me. I said, Mira, come on, let's go on this crazy journey. She said, are you nuts? They're going to kill us. I said, aha, that's the reason we have to go. And let's go together and represent Israel in a different way, because, Israel has 20% Arab citizens. Many people don't know that. They don't even understand the difference between the Palestinians that live in the occupied territories, the West Bank and Gaza, and those that are citizens of the recognized borders of Israel. So we want to go represent this part of the complexity. We're going to sing for the first time in Arabic, in Eurovision. Arabic, Hebrew, and English together. Yalla, let's do it. Let's balagan, we say. Let's make a mess. It'll be fun. It'll be interesting. And we did. And, okay, so needless to say, the amount of crazies from both sides who threatened our lives and said that we were criminal, the Jews and the Arabs. They said that we were covering the conflict with a fig leaf. And I said, no, we're not. We're not trying to make the conflict beautiful. It's not beautiful, it's ugly. Our solution is peace. We are projecting into the future a possibility of what can be if people embrace dialogue. What can emerge? The beauty, remember we talked about beauty as an emergence in a black ocean. What beauty can emerge if people actually see each other as human and equal, and if women stand in the front courageously and do their thing? All of these messages, that's what we're putting forward. We're suggesting something to strive for. And that's what I would like to sing for you now.
Sister, your eyes tell me all my heart really needs to know. Oh, sister, so dear, you and I are here, raising up a voice that is clear. And when I cry for both of us. My pain has no name, and when I cry to the merciless sky and say, there must be another way. There must be another way. עינייך אחות, כל מה שליבי מבקש אומרות. עברנו עד כה דרך ארוכה, דרך כה קשה, יד ביד והדמעות זולגות זורמות לשווא, כאב ללא שם, אנחנו מחכות רק ליום שיבוא. There must be another way, there must be another way, there must be another way. דרך ארוכה נעבור, דרך כה קשה, יחד אל האור, עינקי بتقول كل الخوف يزول، לאן ומה في عنوان وحيد للأغصان بنادي للمدى للسما العنيدة. There must be another way, and when I cry for both of us. My pain has no name, and when I cry to the merciless sky and say, there must be another way, there must be another way, there must be another way.
תודה. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias a los cuatro. Creo que habéis representado perfectamente lo que buscábamos a través de esta conversación. Es decir, que cada uno podríais mostrar vuestros universos propios y en esa necesidad de diálogo, ¿no?, con los otros. Y la verdad es que habéis generado esa energía y ese diálogo que tanto buscábamos. Así que muchísimas gracias. Abrimos, si hay preguntas del público, tenemos... ¿Sí? Espera, Nuria, creo que aquí hay una primero. No, Nuria. No lo puedes coger, por COVID no se puede coger, o sea, tiene que pasar las personas y lo acercan a ti y puedes hacer la pregunta.
No, the question is for you. So, the conversation we've been having, and
may I know who you are?
Yeah,
Sorry.
we've been having a conversation about that.
No, excuse me, I was just asking to know who you
Oh,
are.
I'm sorry. My name is Natalie. Natalie Hamza. I'm from Bethlehem.
Oh.
And so I've been listening to this. You're very engaging, and I'm going to tell you that last night was very difficult for me because on one hand there's the beauty of your voice, and I'm a poet. So on the other hand, the presentation of the words were in contradiction, I felt, with the beauty, because we spoke about the importance of words, and you spoke about your work of peace. But I think right now, we have to push the conversation further. This is no longer about a question of speaking between Palestinian and Israelis. This is about Israelis speaking to civil society. Because you use the word conflict, and I think we are beyond using this word. Because there is in Israel who is oppressing the Palestinians.
And we have to use those words, because those words carry an energy. And for us really to do the work, honestly, then this is how we can move that dialogue. Because once upon a time, I would be too afraid to sit in front of you and tell you what I'm telling you now. Because I was not given the space nor taught that I could have the courage to do it. I was not in any space. And so, as you open the door to this dialogue, I ask you to tell me, perhaps, or you don't need to.
I hear you. I hear you so clearly. Can I react? Okay. Thank you for saying that so courageously. Right? Look, let me give you a little bit of my personal background. All right? I was born in Israel, but my parents moved to America when I was a little girl. My father was going to Columbia University studying chemical engineering. My parents were afraid that we would lose touch with our Jewish and Israeli identity, so they sent my brother and I to a very religious Jewish school. We were not religious at home. The school was of rich people, and Ashkenazi people would say white-skinned. I was the only poor, dark, and secular girl in this school. It was good, because it drove me to excellence. My only way to survive was to be the best student in the class, and through my music and my voice as the soloist of the choir. Really, it was my survival method. But in this school, I heard the narrative, one narrative, the Jewish one. Truthfully, didn't know what the Palestinian people were until I was 22 years old. After my military service even, in Israel, because I returned to Israel at the age of 17. I fell in love with an Israeli young man. I came to return to Israel. I went through the army. Oblivious of the other reality. And then I started my career. I became famous very easily at 21. Not easy, hard work, but quite young. It happened very quickly. And then 30 years of Villa Rosa. And then journalists, like not you, you're not a journalist, but journalists. So no, what do you think about that Palestinian Israeli thing? And I'm like, yes. And I said, what are they talking about? Really, I didn't know. But then I knew. And from the moment I knew, I could not unknow. And that's why, my friend, I've dedicated a great deal of my life to this activity. The big change for me happened when Yitzhak Rabin was murdered. Gil and I were singing on the stage 10 minutes before in the peace rally. Because once I knew about the conflict, and once Arafat and Rabin started talking, I said, oh my God, hallelujah, someone's trying to change this horrible situation. Let's support them. Let's be there. No other artists in Israel were willing to be, The big names, nobody. Everyone was afraid. And by the way, I tell you again, same for Palestinian artists. They won't do, when I come up to them and I say, come guys, let's make a statement, let's say something. A million excuses. No, it's normalization. No, we don't want. I understand. I'm sorry about it. It makes me sad because I think we have to be courageous to break the paradigm. Because, like you said, we have to use sometimes hard, big words. Yes, oppression, occupation. I use these words. That's why I am what you would call a controversial artist. Maybe you don't know so much about me, but I am. And I've also paid a very high price for this commitment to using these words. Let me give you I spoke today in the morning, or I don't remember which conference it was, about the organizations that work for peace in Israel. I'm a big believer in talking about these people and highlighting what they do, because they do the hard work and the thankless work of trying to bring people together and break the paradigm that we are all entrenched in. One of the organizations is the Parents Circle Family Forum. I don't know if you're aware of them. These are bereaved families from Palestine and Israel who have lost their children and their mothers and their fathers and brothers and sisters and everyone to the bloody conflict. I call it conflict, I don't have another word. Yeah, it's an oppression, it's an occupation. All these words are legitimate for me. I don't run away from them, believe me, not me. Many do. It's hard to face this. It's hard to think of yourself as imperfect. People want to think that they are perfect, but nobody is. No nation, no people. I don't believe in extremism. I don't believe in absolute truth. I don't believe in self-righteousness. We're human creatures. We make mistakes. We have to be able to be courageous enough to say, I'm sorry. On the way to fulfilling my dream, I caused you pain. And this is an important thing. And this is why I love the Parent Circle Family Forum. Because they are courageous enough to recognize the other's pain through their own, to reach out their hands and to work together so no one will suffer the same fate. And there's another organization called Combatants for Peace. Fighters from both sides, Israeli soldiers and fighters or resistance fighters from the Palestinian side. We grew up, and this is a terrible thing, thinking that every Palestinian who throws a rock is a terrorist. I grew up with that word, and it took me a long time to shatter that thinking in my brain. I said, but no. Okay, a person that goes on a bus and blows themselves up is a terrorist, all right? That's not legitimate. But every kid throwing a rock is fighting for their independence. And we in Israel, it's impossible for most Israelis, and that's why this forum is so important. I go to sing. Every year, I insist on singing in their, we have a Memorial Day service. It's called the Joint Memorial Day service. It comes on the Israeli Memorial Day. Israelis, many of them, hate it. They can't handle it. They say, this is our day for remembering our soldiers. Why should we also cry with the other? And I say, no. This is the day we must cry together. Every life lost is a precious life. And if you don't recognize the pain of the other, you will never be able to see them as human and live in peace. Dehumanization will continue. You want to tell me that every 12-year-old kid killed in Palestine is a terrorist? Are you crazy? What are you talking about? Listen to yourself. And so that's why I go sing every year. There was a petition to take away my Israeli citizenship because of that. Yes. Hundreds of people signed it. But I continue because I'm very stubborn. My mother says you were born without the bone of the fear. Where is the bone? I'm lucky in that sense of fear. So I hear you, sister. I think it's a tragedy, and we have to talk about it again and again and again. My problem is, and I have to say, I am opposed to the boycott movement. I feel, and the boycott movement has boycotted me many times. And I say to them, guys, are you crazy? That's right, I'm Israeli. I'm not tearing up my passport. I'm part of Israel. But I'm fighting for peace. So give me some slack, help me out. But rather, because I'm Israeli, they will oppose me in every way. And David Grossman, and Batsheva, the Ohad Naharim, and David Grossman, who lost his son, whose son was killed in one of the wars and continues to be a fighter for peace in every single way. Ohad Naharim, one of the most amazing choreographers we have in Israel, Batsheva Dance Company, who is a big, protagonist of peace and human rights, boycotted. I don't believe in it. I believe the idea is to work together for peace, to raise a big voice for peace, to use social media, to use Bella Hadid, gorgeous, amazing, I love her, There was a big discussion in Israel. Oh, she hates Israel. I said, no, she doesn't hate Israel. She's fighting for her people. What do you want from her? It's her right to do that. But I say to her, the next step, Yalla, now in your 2 million people on Instagram, highlight the peace workers, because they're boring. Peace workers are boring. They're not beautiful, they're not glamorous, they're not models. They're just boring people who risk their lives again and again. They're abused by their own communities, from Arab and Jewish, are hated, and they struggle, they continue. So give them some Instagram tips. Put a story up about them. I really believe that this dynamic of talking about putting things open, being courageous enough to say, yes, there is an occupation. There are people here who deserve what we have. Talking about it. Everyone deserves to live with dignity and peace. And yes, the mentality of being afraid to talk about it within the Palestinians is appalling. I know you grew up with it. We grew up not knowing about it. You grew up not speaking about it. It's ridiculous. So, yes, we have to change that in every possible way and not be afraid to do that.
Let me say something. I give you a beautiful sentence to remember. Most of the time, Israelis are pointing a finger to the leadership of Palestinians, like to Hamas. Palestinians are pointing the finger to the governments of Israel. But think of it graphically. Point out. This is a duel. This is violence. This is swords. It's like this. It's like the saber. But when people reach a hand for peace, they don't go like this. They go like that, hand to hand. And so when we try to reach to Palestinians and Palestinians to Israelis, it's that. That's peace. That, the pointing. I mean, you don't know if I support my government or not. But this is what we do all the time. We blame the totality of Palestinians through their leaders. They blame ours. We know we should topple our own leaderships if they do wrong, and we just did. And we hope, glimmer of hope they do wrong. But just remember that this is fighting, and this is reaching.
Thank you for your comment.
Hola, buenos días. Yo soy María, soy escritora y bueno, me ha sorprendido, o no sé si he llegado a entender un poco allí cuando decía el tema de la culpa, porque yo sí que creo que somos culpables y de alguna forma responsables, ¿no? Sí, que tenemos que asumir parte de la responsabilidad de los conflictos y de la situación de los desfavorecidos, ¿no? Que creo que aceptar nuestra culpabilidad y responsabilidad es uno de los caminos para encontrar un diálogo, ¿no? Y probablemente el camino sea el perdón, ¿no? En estos conflictos, ¿no? Al final. No sé si me ha entendido. Está siendo un poco abstracta. Es que cuando has hablado de si los pobres no somos culpables de pobreza o no hay pobreza, yo creo que sí que somos culpables de muchas cosas que hay en este mundo y creo que sí que tendríamos que asumir parte de la responsabilidad de la situación donde estamos hoy. Pero quizás por nuestros antepasados, pero que sí que lo somos responsables de alguna forma.
Of course we are responsible. The reason I didn't hear you well is because in the beginning this one went out and half the and I was looking to figure that. Yes. First of all, we are, each one are guilty of many things. Two, we always have to be compassionate. So those two things are important values. I mean, it's about not just being guilty, but as Noah said so beautifully, admitting to your being a human being and accepting your guilt and asking for forgiveness, apologizing, changing the situation. I mean, there's a difference between saying I'm guilty and I will be either rewarded or not in the next life. That's questionable. What do you do tomorrow? Do you come, like Noah said, you come to the Palestinian or to whoever you oppress and say, I acted horribly. I mean, I had my reason, my narrative. I was not looking at the other. I was non-altruistic. I didn't even see you as I was running over you with my truck. But that doesn't absolve me. It doesn't absolve me from the pain that I inflicted, from my responsibility for what I did, and from including you and compensating you and asking your forgiveness, as I expect from each one to do to me, but not a condition. But first expect. I expect. You know, one of the most noble things that happened here in Spain, that after 500 years, Spanish government is giving citizenship to Jews who have names who can prove they're being Jewish 500 years ago when the Jews were expelled in 1492 from Spain, and now you're saying,
I have to say something about that if you let me.
Yeah, I'm just saying, for me, I know there are always strange political interests, and I'm not going into that. I'm not naive. But I'm saying in a historical perspective, no matter what it is, even hanging on this phrase, even if they're saying, whoa, there's a big admittance.
You know how many Israelis live in Berlin today? You know, there's only one sign of hope in the world. The fact that Israel and Germany can live together, and not only live together, Israel started relation with Germany 10 years, mere 10 years, after the most incredible Holocaust in the world. I mean, with all due respect to each and every person who loses their life, I mean, this was like, whoa. And 10 years later, Ben-Gurion signs a deal with the Germans, and today we have tens of thousands of Israelis going to school and living in Berlin. I mean, our conflict with the Palestinians is minuscule compared to what we have with Germany. And then for years before Germany, people held it against Spain. And the Greeks and the Romans, the whole world is people massacring each other for various reasons. They all have to feel guilty, at the same time hopeful. They all have to ask forgiveness. They all have to be willing to compensate, and everything in a right balance of measure, without going to extremes that are absurd and impossible to manage. Your 3 words, recognize, apologize.
Sorry,
yes.
I have to say something about what you said about this issue about citizenship, because it was something that affected me directly. And I found it so unfair. I'm sorry to tell my own story, but the fact is there are kind of 2 million people from Morocco living in Spain, and the way to get the citizenship is like hell. It's like hell. I mean, when I was 20 years old, I spent, at that time, it was 12 years old that I was living in Spain. So I started to try to get the citizenship because I couldn't get a grant for the university. I couldn't study at the university because, I mean, I studied at the university because I did all my, I did like miracles to study at the university because as a foreigner, I wasn't allowed to have a grant from the government. And then I was trying to get the citizenship. It took me like 4 years of, papers and a lot of asking for papers from Morocco, which is a hell as well, and everything. And it took me 4 years. So in those years, I couldn't work in a public job because I wasn't allowed to. I was a single mother alone with my son, trying to, to keep him alive and sane and to give him everything that he needed. I was alone because I rebelled against the misogyny in my family. So I really needed this citizenship. It was a question of life or death. Yes. And then they changed the law, and they decided to recognize the citizenship to the Sepharad people who have left Spain 500 years ago, and people that were living here couldn't be citizens, and we had to, to be like out of the system, not recognized, dehumanized. And it was a hell. And then I couldn't understand why it was so easy
to get a citizenship from the past, from a very far past, and me, that I was growing up in this society with my family, that I thought it was like, I was like like other children at school. When I was growing up in a small city called Big, I thought that I was like others in the class. And then I discovered I wasn't, because there was a kind of an apartheid for us, because we weren't as humans as others. So I had to struggle with a lot of things, and I felt very betrayed by this law, because for a person that has Sephardi background, you just have to register. And I had to spend 10 years in Spain continuously. I couldn't break this residence. 10 years, have a contract of work, a lot of things I had to. I mean, it was so unfair. It also happened. I'm sorry. It also happened with Messi, because it was the time that Messi came here to play football, and they gave him citizenship immediately, and I was waiting for my. I was like,
absolutely.
What?
I absolutely agree with you. First, I want to react.
Because Messi he's a talented. And I was like, I'm talented as well. I mean, it's more important to write that.
You're so right. I agree. Right. I'm on your side. Woo! Yeah, absolutely right. Makes no sense.
Absolutely. I'm with her on this.
No, I think
I will say one thing. I have no idea why the government of Spain did this thing, but it illustrates one thing on another level, that history and the notion of some people, whether it's the Palestinians, you cannot erase the feelings of people, the feelings of the oppression that you suffered, and the fact that all governments are corrupt, and that there's so much distortion of human values. Sometimes somebody feels that he enjoys that, and sometimes that other. Many Palestinians in Israel suffer from something very basic, very similar. If a Palestinian Israeli wants to marry a Palestinian from Jordan and bring her, he cannot do that. He cannot marry his wife and bring her or his husband and bring them across the border to live in Israel and to accept citizenship. I mean, even after many years, I'm not talking about a process. So, I mean, there's a lot of cynicism. We have to stick to the deep values, to respect the people like you who are oppressed. That's what I have to say.
I'm so moved by what you said,
Yes.
really. Thank you for saying it. That probably demanded a lot of courage, really. And you're amazing. I think what he was saying, he was just giving an example of how. But it's important for me to say we don't have any connections.
Yeah, we're not happy about it.
No. We're just saying one thing. The world is riddled with injustice and riddled with human suffering and with things that can make you crazy. I think that's why so many people just back off. They say, you know what, I can't handle it. It's too much. Human suffering and pain and loss is so tragic. What can I do?
Or become terrorists.
Right. So they either they go to the side of the bad guys, and or they just give up. And I think that we're lucky that we have enough people like you, and maybe like us, who are willing to rebel against the absurdity of it and create beauty and light.
Thank you.
I want to hug you.
Yes.
Sí, muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Bueno, creo que vamos a cerrar esta.
We're going to close this conversation now. It's been extraordinary, and we want to thank Camus and remember him again, because the artist is part of the world in which we live, and it is quite clear that You've shown your commitment with the society and your reality, and this is the society in which we live, and it's a privilege to have you here as creators, here as defined by Camus, saying that the artist doesn't judge but tries to understand. And I think each of you, with your different way of creating art, you show this very clearly, you prove it. Thank you.
Muchas gracias a todos. Ahora tenemos una pausa.
Thank you very much. We're going to have a coffee break in the Plaza San Andreu, and we need to orderly leave the room. So first in the main room and then in the different rows, but we need to be orderly leaving the room. So please stay seated until your turn comes. If you're going to come back, leave your headsets on your seats, and if not, bring them back to the entry where you took them.